Hello, this is the lecture Medicine in Russia in the 18th Century, Part 1. Developments in history of Russian medicine in the 18th century are associated with the name of Peter the Great, Russian Tsar who ruled the country between 1689 and 1725. His rule had a great impact on the development of medicine in Russia. Peter was personally interested in science and in particular in medicine. He was so interested in medicine that, for example, among other things, he always had a surgical toolkit among his things. He admired surgery to such extent that he performed dissections, bloodletting, bandaged the wounds and pulled teeth under the supervision of Johann Termont. This surgeon came to Russia back in Alexei Mikhailovich's time. In general, as we talked at previous classes, foreign doctors were invited to work in Russia since the 16th century. Under Peter the Great's rule, this practice was continuing and took place at a larger scale. Peter the Great was so interested in medicine that he ordered to report him about each interesting surgery performed either at home or in hospital. He came to anatomical theater sometimes to look at those operations, at dissections. So really it was a matter of personal interest for him and had great implications for development of medicine in the country in general. The first development associated with his rule was increase in number of hospitals during his rule and subsequently after his death in 1725. So this was mainly connected with the fact that he pursued a very active foreign policy. And of course, when you lead the war on such a great scale, as you remember, there were Azov military campaigns, there was the Great Northern War, during which Russia got access to the Baltic Sea, so the army was enlarged, and of course during the battles many people died and medical professionals were needed to greater extent compared to times of peace. So that's why considerable budget subsidies were spent on military hospitals. The large ones were established in Moscow in 1707. Later this hospital became the base of the first military hospital school. Then there was a hospital in St. Petersburg, established in 1716, Kronstadt, the hub of the Russian fleet in 1720, in Revel, now the city has the name Tallinn, in 1720 also, Kazan, 1722, Astrakhan, 1725, and some other cities of the country. At the same time, there was an understanding that civilian population needed medical aid as well. In 1721, Peter the Great issued a decree obliging magistrates, organs of local governance, to build hospitals which would take care of the poor, the sick, and the old. In the 18th century, a number of hospitals were established in the cities of Russia, but not as many as it could be because the country lacked resources. The country spent quite a lot of its resources on wars, especially under Peter the Great's reign, but still some compared to the previous period, yes, we can say that the number of hospitals established was increased greatly. By the end of the 18th century, there were 30 hospitals in the country. Also, during military campaigns which there were, during the military campaigns, also some permanent and temporary hospitals were established. Some plants and factories established their own hospitals for their workers, because obviously the administration of the plants needed good employees who are healthy, who can work, who can make sure the production goes on. So the hospitals were established at Sestroretsky plant, Lonetsky plant, Yekaterinburg, Tula, and other cities. The Tsar was concerned, of course, first and foremost with the health of soldiers who served in the army, with the health of workers who worked at a plant. Industrial development was very important for the country to lead the war, because obviously the country needed military supplies for the army, which were provided by the plants. But there were also things which we can say is the evidence of the fact that also ordinary people were taken care of. For example, special institutions were created for the care of illegitimate children. In 1715, the Senate issued a decree according to which hospitals for illegitimate children were built at churches. Skillful women had to be hired to take care of the children. The babies were accepted anonymously through the window. So the 18th century analog of the current day baby boxes were already in fact established in the country. Participation of women in nursing care for the sick in hospitals started in early 18th century, when Peter the Great issued a decree on nuns' work in hospitals. They worked there for some time, but Elizabeth I abolished this practice, sending nuns back to convents. The government realized the need in increased access to medications, because yes, the hospitals were established in cities of the country, the army still had its military aims, so state pharmacies were opened in St. Petersburg, Kazan, Gluchov, Riga, Revel in 1706. In some other cities, garrison pharmacies were established. Again, the army should be taken care of, so the constant access to medications was needed. At the same time, measures were taken to encourage expansion of network of private pharmacies. According to the decree of 1701, every Russian or foreign citizen who obtained a governmental permission and wanted to set up a pharmacy should get a place for it and a charter of inheritance for free. Such druggists had the right to order necessary materials from abroad, so this gave the private pharmacists the opportunity to establish more extended contacts with their Western colleagues. At the same time, the scale of industry supplying the population with medications was controlled by the state. For instance, in Moscow, only 8 more private pharmacies were permitted to be opened in addition to 2 state pharmacies. From 1721, private pharmacies started to emerge in St. Petersburg and other cities.